Alfalfa.
Hair.
Hey. Probably one of mine. I'm going bald from all the stress.
I will. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good morning.
Again, we're getting a late start.
Nobody knows. You don't have to tell anybody. Nobody knows.
Whatever. I'll tell them. Because I'm an honest Abe. Okay, so first off, I had to go to Mount Pleasant this morning, get a fuel filter for our tractor. So it's about an hour there, an hour back, 45 minutes, something like that. It's about a 3-beer trip. It's just under 2 hours there and back.
Is it that long?
Yeah.
Don't.
Today's sponsor is. I'm just kidding. It's empty. It's an empty bottle. Nobody hate on us. It's in the trash. This is really coffee. So anyhow, I do have to admit, I have a confession to make. That I listened to the Bible study there and back.
You cheated.
But I'm telling you, when we read it today, it gets even crazier.
You cheated.
Yeah, well, my radio's not working in my truck. So
you cheated.
I listened to a podcast, and then I had nothing else to listen to, so I listened to today's Bible study. And
no, you cheated. We're supposed to be listening to this raw and not know. You cheated. Intentionally. You knew what you were doing. You cheated.
How was there cheating reading?
You cheated. You got a preview.
I did. Well, I got the whole lesson, not just the preview. But okay, so today we're in Exodus 22, 23, and 24. There's a lot in it.
This is why you did it, so you could. No, you cheated. You cheated on purpose.
No, I'm just.
I quit.
Anyhow, there is a lot in this today.
Which you only know because you cheated.
Yes. Yeah. I mean that.
Cheaters never win. You know what I was thinking about?
I don't know what.
I was thinking about.
Oh, look, it's starting. What? When you think it's dangerous?
No, I was. True. Remember yesterday I had mentioned that it kind of stuck with me about, how hard it is to have faith in hard times.
Mm-hmm.
And, or believe what you're told, even though you may not be seeing it. Like, when they're making this journey through the desert, they're thirsty and they're being told to believe that God will take care of them, right? And they're thirsty and they fear what naturally you fear when you don't have water. Your mind's like survival, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to believe or have faith in what you're being told, which is basically it's faith. You have to have faith in God. And it really, I guess it proves that it's like children and a father. Because we're the children that we have to believe what we're being told, and we have to follow, what we're being told, follow the advice, follow the rules. It's just like being a kid. When we're teenagers and your parents, you thought you knew everything, and your parents would say, no, that's not how this is going to work out, and, whether you're hanging out with people who you weren't supposed to be hanging out with or whatever. And they say, this is not going to end well, and you're like, well, I know them, I know better. Well, you don't believe your parents, you got to test it to figure it out.
Okay.
it really kind of brought that home. It's like we really are just children. I mean, we're just children. That's the way it feels. And I don't mean that by saying that we're immature children. I just mean that we need guidance. And if we listen to what we're told and have faith that's accurate and solid advice versus trying to test it, it might be more beneficial.
High five.
Seconds. Okay.
Hey, something's kind of I've been thinking about.
And
It's just not as funny. Okay, so something I wanted to just get out there first of all. Angela and I are not Bible thumpers. Just in case anybody, I mean, other than
what is a Bible thumper?
we're not.
What is a Bible
What
thumper?
do they do? Something like that.
Yeah,
Is that what they
actually,
do?
yeah. I need you to. Okay, don't say Bible thumper.
Okay, so
that's derogatory.
Well,
you need
no,
to
no,
explain yourself a little
we're
more.
we're not, and I'm not trying to be derogatory or anything like that, but
So
I
explain
just don't want
yourself.
nobody to
Don't
get in their head that, oh my God, here they go posting.
we're
some more.
holier than thou.
You know, we're not. We're not. Like I said, today's episode is sponsored by. Again, I'm just kidding, but really, maybe not. But we're not holier than thou.
No, we
People,
both him more than me have faults.
You better watch that. You better watch that with the Bible open. Anyhow, so I don't want nobody to get that preconceived notion that we're, now all of a sudden they're posting Bible stuff. No, that it could be any further from the truth. The reason that we're doing this, I just wanted to learn the Bible.
Yeah, and we are who we are. So
That's it. Just wanted to learn it.
We just wanted to learn the Bible. We wanted to get closer, and it's really done a lot for. Kevin's my best friend, but I feel like this has actually brought us closer, and we're only so many days into it, and it's really great for communication. But no, we're not perfect. I don't think anybody's perfect, but yeah, this is genuinely. We were just Kevin thought it was on his heart that if we shared this, that maybe other people would benefit. So that's the point.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are afraid to pick the Bible up because they think it's, this is boring scripture and stuff like that.
Or hard to read, which is accurate because it can be. So that's why we're doing it like this.
And that's what I always thought. But one day here, it just kept weighing on me that pick your Bible up.
Well, and it's intimidating. It's an intimidating book if you don't know that it's not. You know what I mean? Like
Right. It's got very cool stories.
It's intimidating because it's the Bible, if you will, and
yeah,
and you think it's going to be hard, but it's not actually. It's very entertaining. There's some good stuff in here.
Absolutely. But the whole point of video in it is I wanted to offer the chance for somebody else to come along or somebody to watch our videos and be like, okay, you know what? They're not.
Those two knuckleheads can do it.
Yeah, those two can do it. Then
anybody can.
Maybe it ain't so bad after all.
Yeah. So,
I still cuss. I still beat her. Is what it is.
We're working on that part.
But no, we're no holier than that. We're no better than anybody else.
We're just common folks. But anyway,
I don't go out trying to, and because I don't know the Bible good enough to try to, ask people who they believe in or anything like that.
Well, I think you have to set a good example. That's where you start.
Yeah, trying to set a good example, but
we're trying to better ourselves.
Yeah, we are who we are, so we're no better than anybody else. So I wanted to throw that out there first, just because because sometimes I see people post things on Facebook and I'm like, flip.
He does that a lot.
Yeah. So I'm judging people. Look, there you go. I'm judging people I shouldn't be judging because they've got a reason for doing what they're doing. So again, I'm not better than anybody else. So, okay, with that being said, here we go. We're still in Exodus. We're continuing on with our chronological program, our chronological study. We're 22, 23, and 24.
Ready? Here we go. Mine's at the top.
Target phone.
Exodus 22. Whoever steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep.
Okay, first, time. Okay, so while I was listening to this on the way to Mount Pleasant, the Tractor Place, and back,
Cheater.
There's a lot to this, and this may be 3 chapters that you may want to like go back and read because there's just so much is thrown at you. The way the rules that are being set down are being laid out. So this may be an area that you want to just to
study
because it just throws it at you so fast. You're like, wait, what do they do? What are they doing? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? Because that's what I was doing while I was driving. I was like, what the hell? Anyhow, but it also shows you how far from the Bible that we live. Okay, so this is anyhow. Here we go.
For the sheep, if a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. Anyone who steals.
Okay.
Wow.
Did y'all just pick up on that?
Let me read it. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed.
Homeowner. The homeowner's not guilty.
If it's at night. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. That means that they could see. They had the ability to make a choice. Right?
Yes, and I'm curious to know if that's the way the law is in Texas today, because some of you may not know. It's when it comes to using deadly force, it's different using deadly force protecting your home in the daytime than it is at night when people are on your property doing stuff. But I'm not getting into the whole laws on that. But
no, because
there's a difference. There's a difference between daytime and nighttime using deadly force on your property
because of your ability to understand the situation, sight, and everything else.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if that's kind of where this stems from. Here we go.
Must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. If the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, they must pay back double. If anyone grazes their livestock in a field or vineyard and lets them stray and they graze in someone else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads into thorn bushes so that it burns shocks of grain or standing grain or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping, and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges, and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property about which somebody says, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their cases before the judges. The one whom the judges declare guilty must pay back double to the other. If anyone gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to their neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property.
Okay, if you remember who the judges are, initially it was Abraham, but then Abraham's father-in-law, no, I'm sorry, not Abraham, Moses, but then Moses' father-in-law, Fuddrucker, I can't remember his name. What's his father-in-law's name? Jethro. Fuddrucker, Jethro, it's the same thing. Jethro.
He said it was the senior Israelites, was it? Was it the
senior? He said people that you basically trust.
That you trust, yes.
That you trust in to become basically outsourced judges.
No.
court system was kind of set up that
No,
that they would hear the cases, but any hard cases would
Yeah,
come to
simple
Moses.
cases. Yeah.
Simple cases. So that's where the simple cases would go to. And we go.
The owner is to accept this, that no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, restitution must be made to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. If anyone borrows an animal from their neighbor and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, they must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed.
Hold on.
Do not mistreat or...
Okay, so he used the word destroyed.
I would say killed.
No, but he didn't say put to death. He didn't say killed. He said must be destroyed. There's got to be a reason.
Okay.
I mean, he clearly says, okay, do not allow a sorceress to live. Okay, don't allow them to live, but it doesn't say how they die.
Hold on, what was it? It was 22.
Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. Yeah, I could see that in a torturous way. But still, he says put to death, right? Says whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. The word destroyed stands out to me. Because it doesn't mean just death. There's got to be... So 20.
Let's see. The practices of sorcery, bestiality, and idolatry were punishable by death. Besides being normally offensive, contrary to the nature of God in their own right, such practices were destructive to the social structure of the community. All of these practices were typically of the pagan and cultic behaviors of the surrounding culture, and as such were avoided by God's people. So it don't say, when you say destroyed, it just says...
Something about that just sticks out.
I would say destroyed meant put to death.
I understand that, but I'm curious as to why those words weren't used.
Now, if you'll notice, it's in the Ten Commandments. They talk about do not murder. Now, putting someone to death, they consider that.
And killed is not murdered,
Right.
because
When you kill somebody for punishment, that's not considered
murder, and it's not war. Is not either. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead. Sorry.
oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt.
all right, hold on. Let me back that up. And this is, I don't think I can back it up.
Yeah, you go back 30. Right there. Try that one.
Okay, so pay attention to the foreigner thing. Now, this kind of struck me.
Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. If you do, and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset, because that cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? When they cry out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your sons. Do the same with your...
When it talks about you must give me the firstborn of your sons, does that mean sacrifice.
I really don't know how to read that.
Because they mentioned that before. So that's 22, 22:29. 22:29. Several laws that spoke to the need for
Hold on, he's looking in this book. The book, the Moody book.
Oh, okay. So just in case you're trying to figure out what I'm reading, I got the Bible, and then I also have a book. It's the Moody Bible Commentary. What this does, this whole book explains every verse, New and Old and New Testament. You can get it at Mardell. It's like $40 something, $40, something like that. But anyhow, you can go through it if you have a question about certain things. You can go through it, and it actually gives the commentary. It kind of explains it a little bit more in layman's terms, or explains it to you a little bit more.
22:29.
22:29. Okay, 22:28 through 30. Several laws that spoke to the need for singular devotion to God were established. One was not to curse God, but rather honor God with the firstborn. This was another reminder of where their first devotion in life belonged. Another was not to eat the flesh of animals discovered already dead. Okay, so it don't say whether it's.
I guess we're gonna have to find that. It'll come up.
Whether you.
It's not a sacrifice.
But you give your firstborn to God. So I don't know if it's you're devoting them to God, like you're like
Maybe
when they
it's
do like a
referencing the
christening.
covenant.
Not a christening. Is it a christening? What do Catholics do when they do the baby?
I think
Where
it's all.
they do the, is it a christening? I think it's christening. Maybe that's what it's talking about. I don't know.
I'm sure it'll come up.
Anyhow.
Cattle and your sheep. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. You are to be my holy people.
See, that's
So,
right there. It's talking about your firstborn. Let them stay with the mother for the first 7 days, but give them to God. Give them to the Lord on day 8.
I still don't know the answer to that.
Okay, we're going to find that out because that's got my.
Not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beasts. Throw it to the dogs. Exodus 23. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure you help them with it. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twists the words of the innocent. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt.
Okay, so it says that twice. Now, this gives me. This kind of takes me back a little bit. Because I feel that you have to be. You should come to the United States legally, right? That if you continue just to let illegals or foreigners, whatever, in illegally, it becomes a weight on your economics, on your health care, on so many things, because you can't support it. So I understand what the Bible is saying.
I'm not sure that I think that you would have to depict legal and illegal. I have no problems with foreigners at all. I think that immigration is the core to what we are today, because we were all immigrants at one time. But I think.
So do you equate this to illegals or just foreigners coming to the country
I
visiting
think it's
or
just
something
foreigners
like that?
coming to the people that we don't know. That's how I would see it.
Okay.
New to the land, people new to the land. I would not.
Because some may say a foreigner is someone trying to come over from Mexico.
It might be. It's also somebody who
Yeah.
came over and took a test and became a citizen.
Yeah, I guess it's just how you perceive.
Yeah.
Whatever you perceive it.
Yeah.
For 6 years you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops. But during the 7th year, let the land lie unplowed and unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and so that the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. 3 times a year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast as I commanded you. Do this at the appointed time in the month of Aviv, for in that month you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the festival of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in your crops from the field. 3 times a year, all the men are to appear before the sovereign Lord. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me along with anything containing yeast. The fat of my festival offerings must not be kept until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. See, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. If you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies and will oppose those who oppose you. My angel will go ahead of you and bring you into the land of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and I will wipe them out. Do not bow down before their gods or worship them or follow their practices. You must demolish them and break their sacred stones to pieces. Worship the Lord your God, and his blessing will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full lifespan. I will send my terror ahead of you and throw into confusion every nation you encounter. I will make all your enemies turn their backs and run. I will send the hornet ahead of you to drive the Hivites, Canaanites, and Hittites out of your way. But I will not drive them out in a single year, because the land would become desolate and the wild animals too numerous for you. Little by little I will drive them out before you, until you have increased enough to take possession of the land. I will establish your borders from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. I will give into your hands the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them or with their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you. Exodus 24. Then the Lord said to Moses, Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. You are to worship at a distance, but Moses alone is to approach the Lord. The others must not come near, and the people may not come up with him. When Moses went and told the people all the Lord's words and laws, they responded with one voice, Everything the Lord has said, we will do. Moses then wrote down everything the Lord had said. He got up early the next morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he sent young Israelite men, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as fellowship offerings to the Lord. Moses took half of the blood and put it in bowls, and the other half he splashed against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. They responded, "We will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey." Moses then took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words." Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of lapis lazuli, as bright blue as the sky. But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God, and they ate and drank. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay here, and I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and commandments I have written for their instruction." Then Moses set out with Joshua his aide, and Moses went up on the mountain of God. He said to the elders, "Wait here for us until we come back to you. Aaron and Hur are with you, and anyone involved in a dispute can go to them." When Moses went up on the mountain, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. For 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Then Moses entered the cloud as he went on up the mountain, and he stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
How long was the ark out? 40 days and 40 nights. There's a lot there.
Can you imagine what that looked like?
But
I mean, that must have been just.
there's a lot of information right here that
And there's another covenant, which we always talk about how many of those there are.
There's so much, there's so many laws being delved out, I guess you could say. And you can see how far from the Bible that we live. And also, could you imagine just to see how watered down people have gotten from the Bible, how far away people have gotten from the Bible? Could you imagine?
Well, not everyone in this area lives by the word either. You know, there's always.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying, but could you imagine nowadays? Could you imagine somebody, you inviting the friends over, or could you imagine we invited all of our friends over, and we say we're going to give an offering to the Lord tonight? We go out there and we got a lamb and we just cut its throat, drain the blood everywhere, and just start throwing it on everybody. Could you imagine?
No,
people would
think. Call the police.
People, like, our friends would probably instantly be like, "What the hell?" Like, they would think, like, if I were to look at somebody, I would think that was satanic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because people that don't read, that have never read the Bible, they don't know that stuff's actually in the Bible.
Yeah, it is in the Bible, but just because it is in the Bible doesn't mean that it is a current practice.
Well, I understand
there's
it's not a current practice.
There's a lot of things that were in the first pages that are evolving and that will not happen going forward. So it's the evolution of society, whether we're in a good place or not.
Well, I'm just saying, look how far we are from that.
Yeah.
Like, people would think they were Satanists if you sacrificed a lamb and threw the blood all over everybody.
Well, I think that's.
Or
there he is.
Or if you were to tell people, hey, there's going to be a cloud on this mountain tonight, I'm going to walk into this mountain, it's going to just go ape shit everywhere. Lightning, thunder, all this stuff. They would think
Cloud's going to turn to fire.
People would think it was sorcery.
Yeah.
But it's in the Bible.
Or there were good drugs involved.
Oh, yeah, there's possibly that.
Yeah. straight truth right here.
Man, I mean, it's just crazy.
Okay, so
All right, what are we 35 minutes into this? You want me to read mine, or you want to read yours?
you can read yours, but
Okay, where do we go? 22, starting at 22.
I do. It's Exodus 23, 22. If you listen carefully to what he says and does all that I says and do, all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies, and will oppose those who oppose you.
You know, and I was thinking about that because
It sticks out to me. It saves. It's like, I will take care of you. I will defend you. You know, like, I got your back.
And that raises a question with me. One country's fighting another country. Both countries are Christians. If God is for us, who's against us? Both sides typically say that. What do you say to that?
I don't know. I think everybody believes they're right in some way or fashion. I mean, nobody.
But if
nobody started a war and said I'm wrong. I just want to fight.
But if you're both Christians, you're at war. You worship the same Lord. You worship Jesus Christ. You do the same thing on both sides, but you're at war.
What are you fighting over?
It don't matter. I mean, say you're two countries, or you're two nations. I mean, we say countries now, but say, we're nations, two nations fighting against each other. If God's for us, who can be against us? I don't even know I wouldn't even know what to say to that.
I don't.
I wouldn't know how to explain it.
I don't.
I don't know. There's so many questions. I think the more we read, the more questions I have. Like, man, I just don't know. Okay, anyhow, here we go. 22, 1 through 15. These regulations concerning restitution for property losses are related to the issues of personal boundaries and accountability. Personal boundaries and property should always be respected, and restitution should always be made when such boundaries are violated or property is destroyed. Accountability for actions that violate others is an important part of God's plan for society. 22, 16 through 28. There are certain kinds of behavior that are abominable to God and brutally inhumane. God has set clear boundaries in such cases and demands our accountability to them. The Apostle Paul implied that such behavior, which is totally devoid of faith and commitment to God, is not only self-destructive but also erodes the very fabric of society. 23, 1 through 8. This section is basically an expansion of 20, verse 16, which prohibits false testimony. The truth eventually comes out, so honesty is not only the right policy, but also the smart one. Even if someone seems to be getting away with lies for a time, that person must still answer to God, and in the end, he will be held accountable. 23, 10 through 19, God gave instructions concerning Sabbath regulations, an annual festival for several reasons. First, these events were a time for worship, faith, and renewed commitment to God. Second, they were object lessons that pictured important spiritual truths for God's people. Third, they were times for rest. They protected God's people from overwork and imbalance. These events were designed to strengthen the people's health, spirituality, emotionally, physically. We also need regular times of worship, reflection, and rest. 23, 20 through 26. God promised the Israelites the protection of his angel and the instructions necessary for living wisely as they journeyed toward the promised land. As we enter a new way of life, God does the same for us. He is able to lead and protect us in ways we will never know about. He has given us his word, which contains instructions for living according to his plan. If we do as he says and look to him for help, we will experience the fulfillment of his promises. 23, 32 through 33. The temptations of life within a promised land serve as a vivid illustration of how proper standards and boundaries can be tragically forgotten. The Israelites were warned about the tendency to make a good, clean start, but then compromise values and goals. They were warned not to make treaties with the people of the land. They were to push them out, replacing them with communities of their own. It is easy to make a good start, but then compromise, allowing certain little practices to go unchecked. In the end, these things will spell disaster, eroding the new lives we have started to build. We went through 24, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes. 24, 1 through 8. Although Israel's response to God's covenant was the same as before, they are now beginning to count the cost of their commitment to God. At this point, they were called upon to make sacrifices to Him. As they saw the animals slaughtered and heard their cries, surely they were reminded of how costly their redemption from Egypt had been. It was a clear reminder of God's gracious forgiveness, for God allowed these animals to die as payment for the people's infractions to the law. We should feel similar gratitude as we thank Jesus on the cross and realize that we are the ones who should have been there. 24, 9 through 11. One of the best ways for us to see ourselves as we actually are is to gain a clear view of God and His glorious person. The person who tends to glorify himself will quickly change his ways if he gets even a glimpse of God's awesome glory. On the other hand, the person who devalues himself needs to understand that he is made in God's image, and that if he is a Christian, he is designed to be in God's glorious presence forever. One glimpse of God in His glory will remove both our pride and our self-depreciation, allowing us to see the truth about ourselves. That's all I've got.
You know, I was thinking about something that earlier whenever you said, hey, you know, we're not Bible thumpers. The fact that you had to say that stuck with me. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it goes to judgment. Like you had to put out a disclaimer, don't worry, it's still us. Because so many people are afraid that walking with Christ is going to remove you from who you are or your friends, or, well, I mean, if they're bad friends, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to make that disclaimer to go, oh, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's bad that you have to make that. And, you know, we are still just us, although we're trying to better ourselves. But it's horrible that you got to make that disclaimer. But I think that immature people think that way. Because as we've done this, I've been absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of people that reach out and say, "Oh, I love this," or "I'm glad you're doing this because you made me kind of want to do it," or either I am doing it. So it seems like,
you know, maybe. And I'm thinking about this and trying to replay, and that's not the right word. I'm trying to.
It'll be a moment.
Reminisce. I can't think of the word. I'm drawing a blank. But I'm trying to. I think maybe in the back of my head, and this is just me being stuck where I've been stuck before. We're trying to do things different. Maybe I just didn't want people to think like we still weren't the cool people. I mean, because we are super cool. Even if in our own minds.
I'm cool.
I'm cooler to flip side of the pillow.
Like, I'm just naturally cool. I was born that way. You have to try.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have to try. I have to try harder. I always have to study harder, and I always have to try harder than anybody else. And yeah,
but
maybe it was
bad
just
that
me.
you have to say, because it comes back to being judged. You know what I mean? It comes back to being judged and not being totally comfortable in your own skin.
Because I think sometimes you're quick to tell people, "Oh, I don't care what other people think." But
not true.
In reality, you are, because I do care what other people think. I mean, I tell people all the time, man, I really don't give a shit what you think.
I don't.
I don't care what you think. You know, I'm not worried about you judging me or something like that. But in reality,
Yeah.
I think we really are.
We
Just
make a
because I
really
didn't-
good balance between the two of us.
Because I didn't want to, not that I don't want to offend nobody by doing this, because I certainly don't care about that. But maybe I didn't want people to judge us that looked at us one way. I guess I care what other people would do, what other people do think about us. I guess I haven't reached that point where I just don't care. I know some people are there, but maybe I just.
Well, I think, and I don't necessarily think it's a place of not caring. I think it's a place of confidence in who you are, and that whoever, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. That's the only way I can put it, because whoever we are is okay as long as it's okay with us.
Yeah.
I got you, Q.
And I think doing this helps me be more honest with myself, because I'd probably never ever tell somebody that, but.
Ooh.
I'm actually I'm coming out and saying it.
High five, slap your hands. Okay. All right. Let's listen to this lady.
Tara Lee Cobble.
Yeah, that girl.
I think as long as you can be honest with yourself and put stuff out there, I think it makes you less vulnerable. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. You're exactly right. I'm proud of you. And us. And I love you.
Hey, Bible readers, I'm Tara Lee Cobble, and
I'm
I'm your
waiting
host
for
for
it
the Bible
again.
Recap.
But wait, there's more.
We've been reading the Bible together for 37 days, and I want to see your faces. I would love for you to post a picture of yourself listening to the Bible Recap.
No, you don't.
I know there are families and even some churches that are doing this together. I want to see you too. So post a picture and tag us on social media. And if you're feeling feisty, you can even tag a friend you want to join you who hasn't yet gotten on board. Who cares if they missed our January 1st launch? There's nothing special about January 1st. I started my first trip through the Bible on a day in August. So no matter what day it is, that's always the best day to start reading the Bible. We continued reading about the laws for restitution today, seeing more of how God directs his people toward a civil and just society that treats others with respect and honors life. He fleshes out some specific implications of the 10 Commandments, or the 10 words, and we see how those apply. When it comes to the laws against theft, you may have noticed that for a lot of the scenarios listed, the amount the thief has to pay back exceeds what he stole. In many ways, these consequences may have served as a deterrent against sinning. These laws may feel kind of intimidating if you're imagining yourself as the one who's committing the sin, but if you put yourself in the place of the one who sinned against, you'll be grateful God established those laws. We also see how God protects the female virgins by threatening men who take advantage of them with the penalty of several years' worth of wages. By the way, this isn't referring to rape, it's referring to a seduction that leads to consensual sex. Later, when we get to the book of Deuteronomy, we'll see that the penalty for rape is death. God also forbids charging interest on loans. Most interest rates in those days started out at about 25%. But guess who borrows money? The needy. So to add to the burden of one of his needy children was considered cruel. Instead, he emphasizes compassion toward the poor and the needy. God also has instructions for caring for the sojourners and the widows and the orphans. He shows special attention to those who are the most vulnerable in their society. He shows his people how to love each other and not exploit each other. They have a lot to unlearn about behavior. They've been oppressed. They've lived with a scarcity mentality. And he reminds them to be compassionate because he is compassionate. To be open-handed because he is their provider. In 22:18, he addresses sorcery. This includes divination, which we've talked about briefly. God takes this stuff seriously. For those who practice it, it is punishable by death. What's the big deal with sorcery, you might wonder? These practices are rooted in contacting spirits for guidance and power. You can imagine that if God is forbidding it, then those spirits being contacted are not on his team. They'd be a part of the enemy's camp. When people seek answers from the enemy instead of from God, It's not only idolatry, but it's treason against the kingdom of light. So God orders death for anyone who practices this and lures people into their web of wickedness. It's how he aims to protect his people from the enemy's subtle, deceptive ways. He's also super attentive about the enemy's tactics when it comes to the land he's giving his kids. He tells them to break the stone pillars the pagans have set up there. He wants them to drive out anyone who worships other gods. And in fact, he says he'll even do some of the driving out through direct intervention as well. By the way, this distinction God's making between people groups has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with idolatry. How do we know this? Sojourners are welcomed among the Israelites, but not those who worship other gods. God is preserving this family for the birth of the Messiah. There were also lots of people in that day who would say they worship God, but who also acknowledged the power and validity of other gods. This is called monolatry, like the blending of the words monotheism, one God, and idolatry, the worship of false gods. While God never denies that other gods exist, and in fact he seems to indicate that they do exist, he continues to point out that Israel's loyalty must be to him. He is their God. He is the one true God. I realize I may have just dropped a bombshell on some of you, and it may seem to fly in the face of monotheism, but don't worry, it doesn't. We're definitely monotheists. We'll link to a document in today's show notes that has lots more info on this, so I'd love for you to check that out if you have a chance. We also see that God ordains 3 feasts, and all of them point to reminders of who he is, testifying to his provision. The first is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which you may remember is the 7-day feast they have annually commemorating their deliverance from Egypt, right after they celebrate Passover, commemorating that God preserved their lives. The second feast is the Feast of Harvest, which is also called Pentecost. And the third feast is the Feast of Ingathering, which happens after the last harvest of the year. These last 2 feasts are an act of both thanks and trust. They celebrate God's provision at the beginning and end of the harvest season. And their feasting also signifies that they trust God to continue providing for them in the future. They don't have to hoard their food out of fear of not having enough. They can feast on it. A few important notes here. There are lots of reasons to believe the angel God described here is a reference to himself. God even says, "My name is in him." As we've talked about, name indicates presence and essence and nature and character. In chapter 24, we see the people enter into this covenant with God at Mount Sinai, agreeing to do all God says. Then Moses offers a sacrifice and throws blood on the people. While this may seem weird, this is likely a symbol that they are tied to the covenant. Much like when God had Abraham split the animals in half and then God walked between them. And being sprinkled with blood symbolizes being purified and atoned for. It's a foreshadowing of Christ's death covering us. We finished today with Moses going up the mountain for 40 days. Tomorrow we'll see what God said to him while they were up there. What was your God shot today? I loved seeing not only how God is protective of his people, but also in 23, 4-5, we see how he commands them to show kindness and love to those he considered enemies or who hated them. We see his heart here. And if you think about it, this is the whole reason we're in relationship with him to begin with. We all started out as God's enemies. And this is how he has treated all of us, being merciful and compassionate, stepping into our need, despite the fact that we have waged war against him with our sin and rebellion. I love seeing this about God. I love that he's a God who pursues his enemies because I was his enemy, and I want to be near to him because he's where the joy is.
What you think on it?
I think you're right. That's a lot of information. Yeah. Some of that's just going to have to
I think that's definitely a
sit and stew.
three chapters that you should go back and read if you want the laws to actually sink in and comprehend, like what the structure they were putting in place was. I mean, because that's exactly what this is a structure of society.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about yesterday. It's the structure of society. Now, the evolution of our society has been amazing and good, but at the same time, it brings, I think the more you evolve, and the more you allow for the fall off of followers to like it's a bit barbaric now to look at it, you know what I mean? But as it has evolved along with society, people have a tendency to make things work for their situation.
Yeah, it kind of goes to
Pick and choose what works.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Sharia law. There's parts of Sharia law that are actually would do us good. Theft. Get your hand cut off. Rape. Put to death. Some of the barbaric thing. Now, I'm not saying all of it is, because it's certainly not. It definitely puts women back in the Stone Ages, but well, actually, literally, because they still do stonings. But I think they're. And I don't. It's so hard to think. It's so hard to fathom, because you want to be a free people. You want to be free to do what you want to do.
But you can't, though. It's like raising children. Everybody, it's like saying why do you think you can't be your kids' friends?
Yeah.
You can't be your kid's best friend as they're growing and maturing and molding into what they're going to be as an adult. The reason why you can't be their best friend is because if they don't have structure, they will make bad decisions. That's why you can't. You got to have structure.
That's why laws are in place. That's why law enforcement is in place.
But you got to have structure. You got. Whether you like it or not. Structure is the key to organization. To being organized.
I'm a huge fan of structure.
We're gonna let that one slide.
Well, what's that supposed to mean?
Not everywhere. Let's not talk about your laundry on the floor. Structure's good. I think that's where it all comes from.
Wait a minute, my laundry on the floor?
Most definitely.
Are you for real?
We need to finish this.
I can't even believe you went there. Anyhow.
It's been a good Bible study.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us. If you joined us through the whole thing, if you did, let us know what you think. Let us know what your thoughts are on it. Again, if there's anything different you would like to see, if you'd like for when we do Bible studies, if you'd like for us to go into depth or stop and talk about it, because I think I kind of liked how we stopped and talked about certain things without reading it and then trying to go back and.
Well, I do like that, but sometimes it's hard to stop and pick up where you were.
Yeah.
So maybe what we have to do is go back a verse or two when we do that, because it's hard to read, stop in the middle of it, and then pick up the next one and actually maintain the rhythm there. So yeah, we're trying to get it right. Anyway.
All right, guys. Hope y'all have a great Saturday.
All day.
And remember, if you don't have a Bible, let us know. We'll get you one. We're going to do something with the Bible. I've got something in my mind. We're going to do something with the Bible. I think we're going to have a Bible giveaway. I think we're going to do a Bible giveaway. This is kind of something I've been hinting on. And I think the two Bibles that we use, it'll be one of these two Bibles. It'll be either the Every Man's Bible, or it'll be the Women's Study Bible. I think we're going to do a Bible giveaway, and part of it is, we'll even put your name on it. Let us know what you think. Hope you have a great day. We're getting out under an hour. 42, 43. Hopefully I can get it to stop before an hour.
Bet you can't.
I bet I do.
Bet you don't.
And... shh.
Mm-mm.